We got thumbs up.
Sign on. Okay. I'd like to call to order the Town of Niskayuna Planning Board and Zoning Commission December 16th, 2024 meeting. Ms. Bergami, could you please call the roll?
Mr. Laflamme,
Here?
Ms. Strain,
Here.
Mr. Khan,
Here.
Mr. Bill Calhoun,
Here.
Ms. Gomes,
Here.
Ms. Gold,
Present.
Chairman Darpino.
Here. We have a copy of the November 18th, 2024 meeting minutes. Could I get a motion to approve?
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Khan,
Second.
second by Ms. Gold. Are there any corrections or notations? I had none. Okay. Seeing how there's no modifications, all in favor, state by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, November 18th, 2024 meeting minutes are approved. Next up on the agenda is public hearings. We have no scheduled public hearings, so we'll move right to privilege of the floor. Privilege of the floor is open to the public for anyone that was wishing to speak about any zoning or planning matter for the town of Niskayuna. Please approach the podium, state your name and address for the record.
Good evening. My name is Christopher Batiste. I live at 1224 Carlisle Drive here in Niskayuna. Last week I could not be here to speak on the issue of Harry Service Center and the proposed expansion or non-expansion. So I'll just be brief in my comments. I did want to make a comment in favor of Harry and his proposed expansion plan. I've been living in Niskayuna since 1985, so that's 39 years. And I have had many instances of Harry and his right-hand man, Robert, bailing me out of several issues with various cars. I have German cars, so they can be very finicky, as many people know. And it beats diagnosis from so the dealers that tend to be expensive, and Harry and Robert have many times helped me out without an appointment, and that's a very convenient thing to have in the town. But more than that, I'm sure Harry has many positive comments on how he's conducted his business and into his personal character. But the main reason I'm here is that in 39 years, that service station has not changed a bit. So when I first started to go and get gas before Harry's time, that service station is exactly as it is now. And there's not many businesses, either in Niskayuna or elsewhere, even in very rural areas, that have service stations or even small privately owned businesses that haven't had some kind of improvement. So I think it's better or best for the town, a big advantage for the town if he's allowed to improve it with his own funds, I understand, to try to make a more modern, more attractive business that maybe it brings in extra business to the town, maybe it doesn't, but I think certainly it could be made to look a lot nicer. It's going to be on Route 7, whether it's in its current condition or if it's improved to be a more modern, nicer looking facility. I think it's better for the town if there's a way that the zoning could allow him to do some kind of improvement on that property. I think it would be best for everyone. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, anyone else in attendance for privilege of the floor?
I would like to second the gentleman's remarks.
Please state your name and address for the
My
record.
name is Christine Mason. I live on Randall Road, 897 Randall Road, a neighbor, of course, of Andrew from long ago. When I bought the house that we live in, one of the advantages to me was a walkable service station. I used to live on Palmer Avenue with one car and two small children, and it was very important to me to be able to walk with my kids to drop my car off, walk back. The location that we have now allows me to do that. It's allowed me to work from home. It's allowed me to drop off my car and be serviced. I know it's not what we think of when we think of Niskayuna, but there are also services that are part of a town. So the location has been there. The service station has been there 39 years, 40 years. It was there when I moved in. I'm happy it's there. And I will second that Hari and the staff have bailed me out on a number of occasions with their participation in the community. So that's all I wanted to add. I'm very happy to have it there. I would be happy to see it expanded. I understand there are issues of a slippery slope, but I defer to your judgment as to whether conditions can be built into changes that are made. Presumably, you have the ability to look at it should it come up again to make a different determination. So that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, anyone else for privilege of the floor? Okay, no, none are present. So we'll move to any correspondence to the town, Laura?
I didn't receive any emails for this meeting specific to the meeting. I have been forwarding on comments to you guys that we've been receiving, but there wasn't anything specific for this meeting. And then I just wanted to check that Kevin online, you didn't want to speak under privilege of the floor.
No comment at this time. I'm here for the 480 Balltown Road agenda item.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Thank you. Okay, seeing how there's no one else for privilege of the floor, we will close privilege of the floor. Next up is unfinished business. We have no unfinished business, so we'll move on to new business. First up is Resolution 2024-40, a resolution for site plan approval for the signage for the Niskuna Central School Office at 1430 Balltown Road. I'll recap the provisions. Now therefore be it hereby resolved that the Planning Board and Zoning Commission has determined that the proposed sign waiver as described above would have a minimum negative effect on aesthetics and compatibility with the neighborhood character, and be it further resolved that the Planning Board and Zoning Commission does hereby grant said waiver to allow for the signage as described above, and be it further resolved that the Planning Board and Zoning Commission finds the above referenced site plan meets the requirements of the zoning code and therefore hereby approves this site plan. Ms. Gold, you're the project lead. Making a motion?
Yes, I'll move that.
Okay.
Second.
Second by Mr. Khan. I'll open it up to discussion.
Good evening. Matt Leon, Niskuna Central School District. Thank you for having us back. I'm here with Adam from Adirondack Sign. In your packets, you have what we're proposing. Not a lot has changed since the last time we were in front of the board. Just want to say thank you for the feedback and consideration. In response to the feedback that we received throughout, we did go with the smaller logo and the lettering of the facade sign, which is within the regulations. We also think will be a better look than that large logo that we first started out with. And the monument sign that we are proposing is, you can see it there. As we've said before, we think that's important just in terms of showing people how they'll enter the property or where they'll enter the property, and greeting visitors, new employees, new families to the district, to the offices. We also included for this time around, based on the last conversation, a rendering of how that would look when you're traveling on Balltown Road. So again, we'd be happy to answer any questions and appreciate the feedback and consideration that the board has given us throughout this process.
Okay, great. So we have 2 facade signs that are now compliant, and then obviously the waiver here is for the monument sign, which is now consistent with the rest of the district's new signing that's been going up on throughout town. This is very helpful to have that perspective as part of this, and we'll open up to other discussion for the board members. Okay.
It's good.
Good. All right. Since there's no further discussion, Ms. Bergami, could you please call the roll?
Mr. Laflamme?
Aye.
Ms. Strain?
Aye.
Mr. Khan?
Aye.
Mr. Billen Calhoun?
Aye.
Ms. Gomes?
I'm going to recuse.
Ms. Gold?
Aye.
And Chairman Darpino.
Aye. Motion passed. Thank you very much.
Excellent. Thank you very much.
All
Have a
right.
good evening.
Appreciate it. Okay, next up is Resolution 2024-41, a resolution for preliminary plat plan approval for a major subdivision of a single-family townhomes at 1356 Balltown Road. I am currently the project lead, so we will go through this. This is lengthy. We will cover all of these. So now therefore be it hereby resolved that this Planning Board and Zoning Commission hereby waives the above referenced variations to the road design and finds that they will not jeopardize the public health, safety, and general welfare of Niskuna residents, provided the private road still meets all fire and building codes of the state of New York. And be it further resolved that the Planning Board and Zoning Commission does hereby grant preliminary major subdivision approval for a 14-unit townhome subdivision at 1356 Balltown Road, as shown in an 11-page drawing set entitled Balltown Road and Van Antwerp Road Residential Subdivision, last revised December 6, 2024, authored by Ingalls and Associates LLP, subject to the following conditions. Number 1, per Chapter 189 subdivision of the land of the Code of Town of Niskuna, preliminary subdivision approval authorizes the developer to proceed with the construction of the subdivision improvements as approved by the Planning Board, TDE, and Engineering Department. Final subdivision approval is required after the proper installation of all improvements, or a letter of credit is submitted to the town that covers the full cost of any remaining required improvements. Per Chapter 98 fees of the Code of Town of Niskuna, final subdivision approval fees will be due upon receipt of the final subdivision application prior to the recording of the subdivision plat. Number 2, the applicant shall not commence home construction beyond one model townhome, 2 units total, in the 1356 Balltown Road subdivision until such time that the road and utilities are completed and accepted by the town, or security acceptable to the town and Public Works Department is given to the town to cover full cost of improvements. Number 3, the developer shall be responsible for the following complete street requirements to this project. A, installation of a concrete sidewalk within the Van Antwerp Road right-of-way from the northernmost property line of CVS to the southernmost road entrance for Van Antwerp Village, built to ADA standards. Details for the sidewalk shall be submitted to the town of Niskuna and Schenectady County for the review and approval. B, installation of public multi-use asphalt path between Van Antwerp and Balltown Road to be maintained in perpetuity by the project's homeowners association. Multi-use path connecting Van Antwerp and Balltown Road shall be constructed and offered to the town at no cost as a public access easement, together with a public access easement for a potential future connection along the north-south portion of the road. Number 4, the on-site roads will be privately owned and maintained under common ownership by an HOA. The road shall meet the town standards for any subdivision roads with respect to design to the greatest extent practical. Any additional deviations that have not been addressed in the above waiver shall be approved by the Planning Board, subject to the town engineer, consulting engineer's recommendations. The private road shall fully conform to the material specification of the town of Niskuna. Number 5, an emergency access gate is proposed with the WRGB parcel pursuant to Appendix D, Section D 103.4. Dead-end fire apparatus roads in excess of 150 feet shall be provided with width and turnaround provisions in accordance with Table D 103.4. The private road is greater than 150 feet. The connection with WRGB eliminated the otherwise dead end. Should the connection not occur, then a turnaround shall be provided. Even if the responding agency to the road is acceptable as a dead-end grantor, then the 150 feet in length New York State Department of State Division of Code is the only authority that can grant relief from the Uniform Code. Number 6, prior to the final subdivision approval, the applicant shall supply the town an easement from WRGB to allow the town to use the WRGB driveway from Balltown Road to the emergency access of the 14 townhome subdivisions and remove snow from said driveway if necessary for access. The final access configuration and easement must be approved by the town planning and legal departments. Number 7, traffic calming on the private road to discourage cut-through vehicles is required. Proposed traffic calming measures shall be reviewed and approved by the Complete Streets Committee. 8, the developer shall be responsible for the following utility requirements of this project. A, installation of a public water main. The water system connecting to the town infrastructure must have adequate looping to ensure adequate system pressures that meet both domestic requirements and fire flow requirements. The water infrastructure shall be contained in easements benefiting the town with sewer infrastructure offered to the town at no cost upon being deemed acceptable. Details for this water main shall be submitted to the TDE and Town Engineering Department for review and approval. B, installation of public sewer main, sanitary sewers connecting the appropriate town sewer district and draining to Balltown Road. The sewer infrastructure shall be contained in easements benefiting the town, with sewer infrastructure offered to the town at no cost upon being deemed acceptable. Details for the sewer main shall be submitted to the TDE and Town Engineering Department for the review and approval. C, installation of a private stormwater system. The stormwater system design must meet the requirements of the New York State DEC Design Manual and general permit in effect at the time of construction. All stormwater infrastructure shall be privately owned and operated subject to an executed maintenance agreement with the town of Niskayuna. The agreement shall permit the town to access the property in the event that the owner-operator fails to adequate care for the facilities. Details for the stormwater system, including a downstream stormwater analysis, shall be submitted to the TDE and Town Engineering Department for the review and approval. 9, building facades shall be referred to the Architectural Review Board for review and approval, and the developer must submit a variety of facades. Prior to issuing a building permit, each new townhome shall be referred to and reviewed by the Architectural Review Board. 10, the developer shall be responsible for the following tree council requirements of this project. A, prior to recording the final subdivision plat, a street tree planting and subdivision landscaping plan shall be submitted to and approved by the Niskayuna Tree Council. B, the silver maples along Balltown Road right-of-way must be retained and shall be protected from heavy equipment by orange fencing throughout construction. C, the Tree Council shall walk the property with the developers prior to site disturbance and mark with flagging trees along the limits of clearing boundaries that shall be retained and protected by the developer during subdivision. D, to lessen the noise impact from subdivision construction to residents on Van Antwerp Road, as much existing trees and vegetation that can remain or clearing in phases is recommended. E, landscaping buffers to adjacent neighbors would be required and approved by the Tree Council. 11, in accordance with Chapter 180 of the Soil Erosion and Sediment Control Ordinance, the town of Niskayuna, the applicant shall be put in place soil erosion and sediment control measures sufficient to stabilize disturbed areas. These measures shall be satisfactory to the superintendent of water, sewer, and engineering, and shall remain in place until such time as natural vegetation has been successfully established. 12, prior to the pre-construction meeting, the applicant shall submit a site development permit application for the administration of the SWIPs and pay $1,200, 5.5 acres times $200 per acre. 13, the applicant will submit to the New York State Department of Environmental Conservation a notice of intent for stormwater discharge associated with construction activity under State Pollutant Discharge Elimination Systems, SPEEDIES, general permit number GP02-01. The applicant will provide a copy of the permit to the town prior to this final subdivision approval. 14, should the garage floor elevation for individual lots deviate by more than 6 inches from the elevations approved for construction by the Planning Board and Zoning Commission or the Building Department, then the revised grading plan shall be submitted immediately to the town's engineer office for review and approval. Depending on the impact to driveway slopes or drainage features, such as swales and berms, the revised grading plan may need to extend into the subdivision wide grading plan to ensure impacts to adjacent lots are accounted for. The applicant, number 15, the applicant shall confirm that the Army Corps of Engineers wetland determination dated 1/30-17 for the on-site non-jurisdictional wetlands remains valid through an updated letter from the Corps. See site plan comment number 24. This would then allow for impacts, temporary or permanent, without further ACOE permitting. A, should the wetlands retain their non-jurisdictional status, the Planning Board does hereby approve the installation of the multi-use path within the 25-foot buffer to the non-jurisdictional wetland. B, at the conclusion of the project, any remaining undisturbed wetland boundaries shall be recorded and shown on any plot plan of a building lot containing wetlands. Remaining wetlands may not be disturbed, drained, or physically altered in any way without first contacting the Army Corps of Engineers. C, the town of Niskayuna requires that no land be disturbed within a 25-foot buffer from the boundary of the wetland, with the exception of maintenance to the public multi-use path installed adjacent to the impacted wetlands. 16, open space shall be deed restricted for no further subdivision and dedicated to the town as conservation areas. Stormwater areas shall be planted with a variety of landscaping and wildflowers to attract pollinators and promote habitat diversity. Dark skies friendly lighting shall protect nocturnal animals. Pocket nature is encouraged. 17, prior to the pre-construction meeting, any engineering and drainage concerns will be addressed to the satisfaction of the town superintendent of water, sewer, and engineering. 18, prior to the pre-construction meeting, any questions or concerns raised by the town designated engineer will be addressed by the applicant in a formal letter to the town. 19, prior to the pre-construction meeting, any minor changes to the final plat shall be addressed to the satisfaction of the town planner. 20, prior to the pre-construction meeting, the applicant shall pay water and sewer trunk fees to the town of $14,000 for sewer, 14 units times $1,000 each, and $14,000 for water, 14 units times $1,000 each. 21, prior to site disturbance, the applicant shall participate in a pre-construction meeting with the town of Niskayuna and TDE and shall address any concerns raised by the town. 22, prior to site disturbance, subdivision map shall be modified to reflect agreed upon decisions of the pre-construction meeting, if any, and disturbed as required to the town and to all involved contractors. Final site plan shall be submitted to the town labeled for construction. 23, the applicant will secure all necessary right-of-way permits from the town of Niskayuna Highway Department, Schenectady County Department of Public Works, and the New York State Department of Transportation as applicable to the project. 24, prior to the site disturbance, the applicant must secure any necessary approvals from the New York State Department of Environmental Conservation and the Schenectady County Department of Health. And 25, prior to the road and utility acceptance, the applicant shall provide all deeds and easements to the town attorney for their review and approval. All conveyances shall be approved by the town attorney and filed in the Schenectady County Recorder's Office at the applicant's expense. I'll move for the resolution to go through.
I'll second.
Second by Mr. Laflamme. Have the applicant come up. We'd like to go through a couple items here. Okay. So since the last meeting, we've had a site plan update that had a couple modifications. If we could, Laura, if you could bring that plan up, I'll just highlight a couple of the items that were talked about. Perfect. Okay, so one of the items is one of the townhome units was rotated that comes directly off of the Barcelona connection, right there. That one right there. There was discussion about the retaining wall and where that lies right there. I can see that there's definitely still a pretty tight area there, but I think with the contours and as you move through the design development, that can be worked out. Where the multi-use path ends up may have an effect or bearing on that, but we'll see once we work through some of those open items. But again, just so everyone's aware, there will be a retaining wall up against that property, and the way that property line kind of sawtooths its way up through there, there's a couple points where the neighboring property is just very close to it right there. And then the other item there is, if you go to the upper right-hand portion of the plan, where the multi-use path crosses the wetlands, there's a very small section right there that Laura is going to put the cursor on. That is the area of that non-jurisdictional wetlands that we're going to have the working session to go through. Okay. I think those were the major takeaways from the last item.
Yeah, just a couple other changes that we can go over too.
Okay.
As you mentioned, we did have a meeting with WRGB, and they indicated a willingness to give us a connection to their parking lot
Mhm.
on that stub street. So you can see there, we call out a new emergency access only connection with a gated entrance. And that'll be equipped with a Knox box too, just in case of emergencies to provide fire access. And if you pan down back towards that retaining wall, there was some discussion from the board on the aesthetics of that wall, especially for the neighbor. So we did provide a line of evergreen screening trees through there. Those are some additional trees, some green giant arborvitaes. And again, that's provided, to screen the wall from the
Mhm.
neighbor.
So there were a couple other things that we wanted to note here, and based on current conversations. In the whereas, this would be on page. So it would be on page 3 of the resolution, and this is section C. I'll read this out loud. Section 185, Appendix A, the sub-base material shall be, and this is in reference to the road configuration and construction. The sub-base material shall be 12 inches of New York State DOT Type 4 and 6 inches of compacted crusher run with New York State DOT Type 2, permitted with the approval from the town engineer. Detail 1111 shows 12 inches of Type 4 sub-base. I believe in the last iteration here, you're able to bring this road up to town standards. Is that correct?
Correct. For item C,
Okay.
we'll be revising our plans to meet that standard.
Okay. So my sentiment to the board here is I believe that we could waive this now that they're making the road compliant, which is a better long-term solution that we have.
And so we can strike section C and renumber D and E.
Correct. So we're going to hold that as number 1. I'll make a motion here. And then we have one other item, which Laura, if you wanted to talk about, this would be condition number 5, which is the emergency access gate for another update.
Yeah, so there was just some code discussion right before the meeting started, and to keep the resolution very clean, there's a possibility that maybe the Department of State isn't the only entity that can waive the fire road. So I am just saying, with the direction of the TDE, that we could change this to just say that the emergency access gate is proposed with the WRGB parcel. The private road is greater than 150 feet. The connection with WRGB eliminated the otherwise dead end. Should the connection not occur, then a turnaround shall be provided. So I think it'll just have to say that should the connection not occur, the road will have to comply with the New York State Uniform Code requirements.
Okay.
So it's just a little more general so that Joel, who's here if you guys have questions, and Joe can work it out amongst themselves.
Yeah, and I think we approve of that change. We're good with that.
So we would like strike the sentence that specifically references 103.4 and then the stuff that's in the parentheses and just change it to be the uniform code, New York State Uniform Code.
Okay.
And then the only other thing that I just wanted to ask Andrew really quickly, I removed or maybe Joe, I removed the represent the name of the MS4 permit in the whereas clauses, but I didn't realize that it came up in number 13. So Joel or Andrew or anyone, should we actually remove the general permit number GP0201?
Well, it's 20001.
Okay. So, because it's going to change, right? Okay, so
And the project was designed with the 2024 manual, so we'll be most likely covered under that.
So can we then, Chairman, I'm also, just to say the current one. Yeah, okay. So for number 13, then I would just recommend that we strike general permit number GP0201 and we'll just say the general permit in effect. I did actually make that change in a different spot, but I didn't see that it was here. Until the chairman was reading the resolution very carefully and slowly.
All right, so I'm going to make a motion to make 3 changes. First one is to strike the whereas C in reference to the road on page 3. And then the second one will be on condition 3. I'm sorry, on condition 5, strike the second sentence pursuant to Appendix D, Section D 103.4 in its entirety, and then also strike the last sentence, half after the comma of the word occur, that reads, then turnaround shall be provided, to read comply with New York State Uniform Code. And the third item will be to modify condition 13 to remove the general permit number GP-02-01 and replace it with general permit in effect. Could I get a second?
Second.
Second by Ms. Strang.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
there's a couple of other things we want to bring up to the board that when my client and I reviewed this, that
Okay.
we need to discuss. Come on up here, Mr. Miller and I.
Well, why don't we take action on these? Because we know that they are sort of
That's fine.
typos.
If you wanna
and
do
then
that.
you guys.
Yeah, we usually, we can have a multi, okay.
No problem.
Ms. Bergami, could you please call the roll on the amended resolution items?
Mr. Laflamme?
Aye.
Ms. Strain?
Aye.
Mr. Khan?
Aye.
Mr. Bill and Calhoun?
Aye.
Ms. Gomes?
Aye.
Ms. Gold?
Aye.
Chairman Darpino?
Aye. So those three modifications have been approved.
Okay.
Mr. Kavanaugh, go ahead.
Can we put the timer on, please? I'm just kidding.
All right. So,
State your name.
sure, Bob Miller with Windsor Development, Niskuna BR Holding. My comments relate to some of the committees that we need to go to, the Complete Streets Committee, Architectural Review Board, and the Tree Council. And so I'm specifically going to look at those sections in the resolution here. Starting with number 7, which is the Complete Streets Committee. It says, traffic calming on the private road to discourage cut-through vehicles is required. Proposed traffic calming measures shall be reviewed and approved by the Complete Streets Committee. So my question is really a procedural question, is how does that work? And since it is required, if we can't agree, where does that leave us?
So we've never had an applicant not agree with the Complete Streets or Tree Council, but I suppose if they couldn't agree, it would come back to the planning board to kind of decide in the favor of one or the other.
Okay, so that's what happens. If we go to one of these committees and we can't agree, we come back before this board and have a further discussion.
That has actually never happened.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
yeah,
But-
take the heart to point at Laura.
Yeah.
Sir, yeah.
We
Okay,
will, but
yeah.
you just,
Yeah.
we're being
It-
hyper.
It's the
critical.
planning board's authority that they've delegated to these subcommittees,
Yeah.
so it'll come back here if there's an issue.
Okay.
Okay, so then again, and thank you for that clarification.
So some quick observations on this. One of the things that we would probably reference this to is if this was just a corner with a straight shot. You have a curved road, which mitigates, you know,
Calms already.
it calms it already. You have a large turn. The way that you come out, exits almost like a driveway on two sides. So you've already built in some of these general traffic calming things. It's our concern is when we get something that is a potential cut through that's basically a straight shot through.
Okay.
That's
The only word that had me concerned and my client was required. That's all.
Sure. no,
Okay.
And we've already told the board that we'll work with them. But when the word require is in
Mhm.
there,
Mhm.
it just, like we just said, what do you do at that point? So you just answered, it's never happened, but if it does,
It comes back.
we
Comes back to us.
here. There's a couple more.
okay. Go ahead.
So with respect to the Architectural Review Board, number 9 says building facades shall be referred to the Architectural Review Board for review and approval, and developer must submit a variety of facades, which we've done to the planning board. So my question is, has the Architectural Review Board seen what we've submitted? And basically, I don't want to get in a situation where Architectural Review Board has the authority to say, these are out, you guys got to redesign these buildings, you got to, we don't like the way these look. We presented to the planning board. And then the next sentence goes on to say, prior to issuing a building permit, each new townhome shall be referred to and reviewed by the Architectural Review Board. So our thinking is that we've submitted to you, the planning board, renderings. There's 2 different building types. For the one building type, we have a facade. For the other one, we have 2 separate facades. Color and material, we're certainly open to talking about, but the facades are really driven by the floor plan. The inside drives the way the outside is. So where the windows are and where the doors are, that's all driven from resolving the floor plan. I just want to make sure that we're not going to get into a situation, and I just don't know the scope of the authority of the Architectural Review Board. I don't want to get in a situation where the review board says, no, we don't like these.
So the Architecture Review Board is a non-binding committee. They make recommendations, and we found that they've been a really good asset to applicants and developers. You know, they have a lot of good people there with some good backgrounds that take a look at some of the aesthetics. A lot of what they're going to look at is to make sure that we don't see blank facades, you know, entire sides of buildings with no windows. You know, one of the interesting things that you have with this plan is that you've rotated the townhomes so that you're going to be able to see different facades from the street view. So that's to your benefit, which is good, because even though there might be two typologies, you're really going to be looking at 4 different facades. And then with something like that, they may ask you if you alter the roof lines or maybe the way a porch looks on the outside, something that just differentiates one from the other. They're minor moves. They're not large construction things that increase your budget. They're not going to take your floor plans and start sketching over them and making them bigger or smaller.
Was anything that they submitted to you, your, you know, you made these modifications, changes. Did any of that go to the Architectural Review Committee yet?
It's actually a Clark question, and he can answer it. He's online.
Yes, they, to answer that, they have looked at the sketches that have been provided, and they're quite impressed by them.
Then
So I think he said.
They're impressed. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So they're not going to mess around with the basics of the building. I think what we just want to avoid is on Balltown Road, I think 3 of the facades are the same facing Balltown. And we talked about this on the phone a little, or one of you. I get 2 of you mixed up sometimes. But different colors, different window treatments, that kind of thing, so that there aren't 3 exact same buildings facing Balltown Road.
So the 2 big no-nos you didn't do, which is good, is you don't have blank facades, and then your garages don't dominate the street side.
Right.
Those both work to your advantage. So again, the ARB is a great resource.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you for the clarification there. And then the last one is,
Thanks, Clark.
it's a similar concept, and that is, or question really, and that's the tree council. In 10A, it says, you know, that we have to have the street planting and subdivision landscaping plan that's submitted to and approved by the Niskuna Tree Council. Well, we've submitted that to you. It's part of our plans. Have they seen that, and have they approved it? I don't want to be duplicating things or show this board something and then the tree council says, no, throw that out. We're going to start this over. And the same thing is with 10E, landscaping buffers to adjacent neighbors will be required. Well, we've put those in the plan that we've submitted to you. So how does that work?
Yeah, I can. They actually looked at it last Thursday, and it's not sufficient right now. So our code requires 2 trees per lot, and it doesn't even equal 2 trees per lot. I did send the comments to Joel that came from the tree council, and I believe you put them right in the TDE letter. Oh, you didn't? The tree council? Oh, okay. Yeah, they were, the specific comments are kind of written into the resolution. We don't really need to go point by point, but right now the tree plan doesn't meet the town code. And there are a couple areas, especially next to single family homes, that don't have landscaping buffers. You're putting in a swale and there isn't any vegetation to the one home on Van Antwerp. So we're not holding the landscaping plan up tonight, but it is definitely deficient right now, and the tree council has reviewed that.
Okay.
Laura, just for the record, you should probably repeat whatever Joel said, because that didn't get picked up on the microphone.
Oh, I'm sorry. Thanks, Clark. Yeah, our TDE, he had the comments, but he made a general note that the tree council, to defer to the tree council. So I can get the memo from the tree council to you guys. I figure the landscaping plans, like with River's Ledge, they take a little while sometimes. We don't really hold up subdivision for them because it can be like a evolution. But the one right now definitely needs some work.
Okay.
Yeah, like with River's Ledge, it was kind of like a work in progress.
Mhm.
You know, certain things couldn't be done, and there were substitutions. And you were able to work that out.
Yeah, so like phase 1 of Rivers Ledge just got approved, I don't know, a month ago. Phase 2 still doesn't actually have a landscaping plan ready to go. They're building the building, but they'll actually work on the landscaping plan when the ground starts to get ready for planting. So it's the landscaping tends to be more of a final thing, but definitely the number of trees and stuff wasn't right yet.
So Laura, 15B, wetland. So we have this letter, non-jurisdictional letter,
Mhm.
has expired. We're working on obtaining a new one. 15B, I'm just a little confused as to what that applies to.
Yeah, so Joe asked me this question. I told him we've never written a subdivision resolution without these 2 notes since since decades.
The 2 being B and C? Or?
2, B, and C are just general conditions that we have in all of our subdivisions, even when there aren't wetlands. But this would theoretically apply to the lands that are being deeded to the town of Niskuna.
I'm sorry, those apply just to the lands that are being deeded to the town of Niskuna?
Right, because you are, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, you're basically grading and changing all of the wetlands on your property. So the only ones that remain undisturbed are on the town of Niskuna's property.
Okay.
But even if, I could check, but even if we have a subdivision with no wetlands, we actually keep this note in the subdivision because it's like the erosion notes are always the same as well as the TDE letters. Even if we have a final TDE letter, we still keep some general subdivision notes in all of our approvals.
Should you amend that then to reflect it as it relates to the lands that are going to be deeded to the town?
Well, it says remaining wetlands may not be disturbed, drained, or physically, well, at the conclusion of the project, any remaining undisturbed wetland boundaries shall be recorded and shown on any plot plan of any building lot. So, I mean, there aren't going to be any wetlands on any of the plot plans or building lots.
Doesn't make any sense then.
Remaining undisturbed. All right, so
Did you see anything you wanted to change that? You understand what we're talking about,
Yeah.
right?
Yes, I mean, maybe we want to revise that because there are going to be remaining wetlands, but they're not going, like you said, they're not going to be on a building lot. So maybe we want to say any remaining wetlands on the open space lots.
I don't want to say that. This is the general condition that we put in
Yeah.
all of our subdivision approvals.
I agree.
I don't know, we'll just,
Laura, while we're on this topic of the 25-foot buffer in the wetlands, we've demarcated these with split rail fences, and I think there's other signage or placards or bollards or something that would be required as part of this.
The planning board has the discretion to require the split rail fence on the town property. That's the only wetlands going to be remaining. I did actually remove that because I didn't think it made sense to put a 25-foot buffer
Okay.
on that particular parcel. That is at your discretion.
Okay. All right. So one of the items that we sometimes request out of the applicant is for anything on the town's wetlands, they're demarcated with a split rail fence. Recently, we've had other applicants come up with a metal post and a small placard system that is actually quite nice. It's not as, I guess, visually obstructive as a split rail fence, and the maintenance is a lot easier. And a couple of those positioned every 20, 25 feet or so have kind of indicated where the wetlands are. That may be something that we request.
okay.
All right.
That's fine. And I'm okay with this language based on what I just talked to Joe about.
Okay.
And
Great.
I think that's it.
Thank you.
All right. So no modifications to anything other than the 3 we just did, correct?
Right.
Okay, great. So keep it open for discussion here. Any other comments?
How did we resolve, I noticed in the TD letter in the drawings, we're still missing a snow removal location,
Oh, what removal?
for snow removal.
Yes, we are still missing that. So we will have to make sure that that is one of the comments that they address prior to the pre-construction meeting.
Okay. And what was the final resolution on garbage? It's,
So the garbage, won't be able to go through the emergency turnaround.
Right. Well,
not.
We, you know, we had requested kind of an asphalt area that they could potentially bring their garbage trucks down. That is not included on the plans. I'm just not 100% sure that we need that, because I have seen garbage trucks just back down a road too. And if we can avoid pavement, it might be okay to let that work out internally. But yeah, we did discuss that, and like a paved area for them to bring the garbage cans is not currently on the plans.
Right, so it's just for procedural consistency, right? I agree it's not necessary now for the approval that's in front of us and resolution in front of us tonight. But I think by the time we get the final site plan, we'll need to see and get a clear explanation of how those two things are handled, snow and garbage. Sounds reasonable for the board?
Yes. Okay. Seeing as there's no further discussion, Ms. Bergami, could you please call the roll?
Mr. Laflamme?
Aye.
Ms. Strain?
Aye.
Mr. Khan?
Aye.
Mr. Bellin Calhoun?
Aye.
Ms. Gomes?
Aye.
Ms. Gold?
Aye.
Chairman Darpino?
Aye. Resolution passes. All right. You're welcome. Good luck with the project, and we'll definitely be in touch in the new year. All right. Thank you.
Thanks, Joel.
That wraps up the resolutions. We'll move on to discussion items. First up is 480 Balltown Road, a site plan application for new lighting for the Chase Bank ATM. Laura, do we have anyone online for the application?
Yes.
Okay.
Go
Could you-
ahead, Kevin.
Hi. All right. Everything working? Good evening, board members. My name is Kevin Heffernan with Stonefield Engineering and Design. We're the civil engineers and the project consultant. Our address is 484 Broadway, Suite 310, New York City, New York. Just to be brief, the agenda statement did a pretty thorough job of summarizing the basic facts of the project. This is a proposed bank upgrade to improve the exterior lighting for both customers and the bypass travelers at this location. This project is one of hundreds of site renovations as part of Bank of America's exterior lighting upgrade program, which has three goals. To update the existing lighting to meet the minimum state statutes for bank ATM security. On the plans that were submitted, you would refer to sheet C4 and C5 to show those minimum requirements being met. Secondly, to meet the local ordinance to the greatest extent possible. And then third, to introduce low emission LED fixtures where feasible to reduce the environmental footprint of each site. Today, existing on site, if I could present here. Let's see.
So you hit your share your screen button, and then you have to actually click which you want to share.
Let's go with this one.
We got you.
All right, perfect. So today there exists a single light pole about 40 feet tall. If I zoom in here, you can see that it includes those older style metal halide lights. It's unshielded and kind of directed towards our adjacent properties here and towards the driveway with a spread throughout the parking lot. This light failed to meet those state regulations. So what we are proposing now, let's see, here's an aerial. What we're proposing now is to replace that fixture at the same height with a full cutoff LED fixture that has a less intense but slightly wider illumination spread. If I scroll, this is our general photometric plan, and sorry to make anyone dizzy, but the new heads would look like this. The new LED kind of flat style blade fixture that would sit atop the existing pole. So just scrolling back to our overall photometric plan. So as I said, this would be at the same height, but it has a less intense and a slightly wider illumination spread to help meet those state requirements. And then please note, this is our first hearing, but our second submission. We actually previously got feedback from the town. The board had concerns over brightness and trespass of our previous set. Our previous set had the lights actually rotated, so it was facing west towards Balltown Road, which has since been revised, trying to limit all of our illumination to just be on site and be cognizant of our neighbors, both across the street and the bypass traffic. Today, we've since reoriented, as I said, we lowered the levels by about 20% across the site at a photometric level. And that number rises to as much as 40%. We reduced the lighting at 40% underneath the light pole itself. We're proposing full cutoff fixtures, and we've limited the trespass to under 1 foot candle at the right-of-way line. And we have reduced the light's temperature color to 3000 Kelvin, whereas previously 4000 Kelvin. Just to note the difference, we did prepare a small exhibit showing that difference, how it's far less harsh on the eyes, both on site and driving past. It reduces glare, it's warmer, and it tends to be less of a nuisance to all around. So going back. So after workshopping the design, we believe that we've kind of found a good common ground between the town's requirements, the state's requirements, and then the bank's overall standards. And above all, we think this is a win-win for the town, upgrading our bank site, and for the patrons on site. So with that, please let me know if you have any other questions or if I could provide any other information.
Actually, I do have a question. The rendering we have shows the so-called warm white lights looking decidedly amber.
Mm-hmm.
Are they amber?
So just from the color temperature, it is a little bit more yellow, so to speak, but it is not as low as an amber light, which would be about 2700 Kelvin. I know these are close, so it's kind of very similar.
My concern is that the more amber lighting kind of distorts the color of objects. And if there's an incident, that could be a problem. Somebody is reporting a car this color hit them and went off. They might not be reporting accurately because they're not seeing it accurately.
So these might be slightly more yellow in photographs than they are actually in person. I don't want to go into the overall specifics of the lighting color temperatures, but these are probably the two more standard lighting colors that you'll see. A lot of times we've actually been required, not only requested, to lower from the 4000 Kelvin LED lights, these bright or cool white, they call it, for similar reasons of how they affect people on site and driving by. So what we're trying to do is strike a balance between the 4000 Kelvin cool white and then the 2700, what you would call amber. I wish there was something a little bit more in between, but the manufacturers and most manufacturers only offer that 2700, the 3000, and the 4000. So it would be our opinion that the 3000 is both the safest and the less obtrusive to pass by traffic, on-site traffic, while still providing the adequate safety. I don't think that it will, distort any colors or any visuals on site.
We have other sites in town where they've actually gone away from the amber colors, including National Grid fixtures.
And if this is an issue, I just want to check that it doesn't affect or it doesn't impact us from a zoning standard. I just want to make sure it doesn't conflict with the town zoning requirements. But I don't think the bank would have any issue really with going up to the 4000 Kelvin LED. It's really, we just came down. 4000 is standard at some banks. We came down to the 3000 here. I believe it was at the request of the town or the planning team on that very first submission. I believe it was last February. So if the board would, if you guys would like to see the 4000 Kelvin lights better, I don't believe the bank has any issue with updating our drawings to match that.
So, Kevin, I did lighting upgrades in the city of Valdez, and my police actually said the exact same thing that Leslie just said. That one of the reasons that we upgrade to LED is because it's more of a true color. But I do not believe that what you put in your packet is actually an LED light fixture.
Yeah.
Just looking at the fixtures hanging from the light poles, if this is the city of Schenectady, I don't believe that is a LED.
They look a lot like
Fixture.
high pressure sodium.
Yeah, they look like a high pressure sodium. Like I have a different thing that I could share if you want to look at that and say that's more like what you're used to seeing. Because I believe that the 3000K is actually still a true white that doesn't distort color, but that would definitely be something that I would want you guys to check. Can I just bump you off for a second and show you?
Sure.
It would be classified as a soft white, correct?
Yeah, I'm just,
White.
yeah, just like,
Mhm.
I'm just gonna, here, I'll just do this. Hold on, I'll show you. This is more like what I saw when I did the lighting swap in Valdez, because we were trying to do dark skies and we wanted to actually help with the police. And for instance, like I remember that 6000K was way too cool. People did not like that, but we did something like, I don't know, a 47, but this does still show it as being pretty white here.
I agree. I believe that the pictures that we actually included, we probably overemphasized how warm that white was going to be, but it will be the 3000 color that you see in your shared image. So sorry about that. We may have misled your team.
That's an important factor.
Yeah, because I know that's important to the police. They really do like the true white color.
How recent is this regulation change?
I don't know.
Do you know, Kevin?
I don't know, but as far as I've been doing lighting, 6+ years or so, really we've been held to the 3000 minimum, similar to what Laura was talking about. So we've never really gone down lower, except for maybe small scale pedestrian pole lights, like in a after night aspect. But anything that's for site lighting from a security reason or security aspect, we would definitely want the 3000 minimum.
I mean, is this going to impact all of our other banks that we have?
I don't know. The most newest ATM that we had was it was a white LED light. Yeah. I don't know.
I think this 3000 is a minimum, right?
Yeah.
So the pole is not changing. It's just the fixture. The height of the pole is staying the same. Is that correct?
That would be correct.
Okay. Is there any advantage to shortening the height of the pole? I mean, it's a pretty big pole in the middle of a parking lot.
Agreed. The reason that we actually kept this was to keep that overall spread around the site to meet those state requirements. I could take over and kind of talk about the state requirements a little bit and how we were getting a little close to those minimums. And then secondly, just match the overall height and I guess the feel of the overall shopping center. As you go south into the main shopping center, you'll see the similar poles throughout.
While you're sharing your screen, is the existing one an amber now and you're going to white, or is the existing one pretty bright white?
Let's see. So the existing one is actually an amber, just because these older the metal halide lights, they typically are a little darker. And then they kind of fade with age. So it's hard to tell exactly where that would fall right now on site. But this is kind of what's existing on site. If I could, this is as far as I can zoom in, so you can kind of see they're the larger box lights.
You have to share your screen again because I bumped you off.
Oh, sorry, it does say I'm sharing. Let me try again. All right, here we are. So just zooming in from that shared driveway just south of the ATM, zooming in here, you can kind of see what is existing on site. So those larger box lights, we'll be removing these and replacing them with the LED blade style, much thinner, and what you'd see in more, I guess, in newer share or shopping centers.
I haven't been by that fixture at night to remember what the color is now. Originally, it was pretty white.
And this is a 3-head fixture, correct?
That is correct. Yep. So just to scroll back to our plan, that is correct. Currently, there are 2 heads pointed north and south, and we're adding one pointed east to, just to scroll through here, not trying to make anyone dizzy, but just to meet the security minimums per the state statutes. So there's 4 requirements. One is the 5-foot radius. One is meeting 2-foot candles at grade level within the 30-foot radius. And then the next are meeting 2-foot candles at a 50-foot radius and a 60-foot radius.
Okay.
As you can see in the 50-foot, we're getting pretty close to that minimum 2-foot candles. So that is why we kind of landed at keeping this height and trying to reuse this pole. If we were to remove this pole and lower it, we'd have to add additional poles on site. And if I just scroll back a little bit to our overall plan, you can kind of see, let me make this a little bit better. I will draw, this is the property line that I'm kind of drawing in red here. Just to trace over that line that is showed a little bit more faintly. You can see how close the existing parking is to that property line. So if we were to reduce the height of the existing pole, we'd have to compensate with adding a few more light poles. So that would, perhaps be up in this location. Oh man, these are really faint. I'm sorry, please bear with me. Up in this location, maybe down in the corner, and then maybe in this middle island. So we'd have to add more light poles to compensate, and just due to the proximity of the parking to the property line and trying to limit all of our light on site, even with shielding, we think that the proposed solution would be the better solution than this alternate.
I'm okay with the fixture. My sole concern at this point is with the color of the light.
Yeah. I think one of the takeaways would be that we'd like to see what the 4,000 looks like with the lighting plan here
We want to see what the 3,000 looks like.
and the 3,000.
Oh, what you're viewing right now is the 3,000.
This is 3,000.
If you had a 4,000, it might be slightly brighter, but
Mhm.
marginally. It's really just a temperature thing. It wouldn't affect the photometrics all that much. Maybe, 0.1 foot candles, 0.2 foot candles, something small like that. It would largely look very similar.
The representation you sent us looks amber, not white. You're saying it would be white, but
Yeah, I feel like if there's a question, I know from my past experience with police that the truer the color, the better it is for their cameras and their enforcement. And if there's
and
a
eyewitness
suspect
reports and
wearing
everything
a
else.
shirt and it's black, it looks different in the amber light. It's much easier for them if it's a true color light.
Yeah, and the true color light has been pretty consistent with some of our other banks and stuff recently that we've had for applications. Okay.
Yep, we have no issue with bumping up the 4,000 Kelvin. Our original proposal actually had the 4,000 Kelvin. We just brought this down to as we were trying to limit the wear and tear on the eyes. But if that's not, I guess, subject of concern, and we agree, we're proposing the lighting for a bank ATM. Security is the number one, I guess, the number one discussion item in our. We would have no issue with bumping it back up to 4,000 Kelvin.
So Laura, the planning department had already recommended coming down from 4,000 or?
Well, no. So there are residential homes across the
Right.
street from here, and we were concerned that the light trespass was too high.
Right.
So he was doing everything he could to reduce it. And he is saying that the color temperature does make it slightly lower. But I was also wondering if you guys planted some vegetation in that green strip, if it'll block some of that light to the adjacent neighbors.
You're talking about just in the western green strip that's along Balltown Road.
Yeah, because that's where the residential homes are. There's residential homes across the street there.
I don't think the bank would have an issue with what I would assume is probably like an evergreen hedge, a year round, like probably up to like 36 inches or so, blocking, I guess, in that green belt. I don't think they'd have a concern with that. I'm not sure if it would really impact the light pole itself, just because it is much higher. What it would do a good job of is just limiting headlight glare from the adjacent parking, but it definitely wouldn't hurt.
But it would change some of those foot candle numbers around where you got the red drawn, right?
Right where I have the red drawn, and then slightly to the west,
Yeah.
probably in this area marginally, just because the angle of the light coming down from the pole, it still would go over the hedge, at least a little bit. So sorry to keep drawing on this over and over, but it would probably change the values within the 10-foot green belt buffer, and that's about it. If you had evergreens in this area, it probably wouldn't affect anything in the roadway, just because the light would go over top.
And from a security standpoint, I wouldn't want really tall stuff there.
Nope. And just to add, the New York State statutes, they actually require that all landscaping within the security radius be trimmed to a maximum of 36 inches, mostly for people hiding or just creating dark shadow spaces around the ATM. It's really just a security measure.
Any other comments?
I think if the state requirement has a minimum of 3,000, maybe we should be okay with that.
With the minimum.
Yeah. As long as that's why I asked, as long as it's something verifiable. Right? And for that was worth, Kevin, on your write up on the first page, I think you got an extra 0 in some of those temperature values.
Oh boy.
Yeah, it's okay. It's
Definitely not 40. 40,000.
Yeah. That's okay.
Thank you for catching that.
It needs to be a white light in my book, not amber. So I don't know if the representation we sent was inaccurate or if it really does need to be a higher number.
Right. Let's remember, right? He's
And-
moving towards a more whiter light from where we're currently at today.
Yeah, it
But my
does.
thing is, if the state has a minimum and he wants to meet that minimum, then
So really, we only came down to the 3,000 Kelvin just to make it a softer appearance for pass-by traffic and then our neighbors. But if we want to come up to the 4,000 Kelvin color temperature, that cool white that was previously shown, we have no issue. That's probably on more than 50% of our bank sites. Not all of them, but more than 50%. So we would have no issue with coming up.
Do you have anything in this area with a 3,000?
We could drive by.
Definitely within the state of New York. I don't know off the top of my head exactly which sites in nearby communities, but we came down to 3,000 on a few sites just recently up in Rochester, which I know isn't nearby, but
A little too far, yeah.
Okay.
yeah.
If it makes you guys feel better, when we were trading the lights out in Valdez, we actually had a pizza party and had people vote on the color temperature. It is it can be a lengthy discussion, the color temperature. I remember it well.
Kevin, what if I propose this? Since you had some initial design work done for the 4,000, why not show that with the same plan that we have here? You could discuss with the bank, maybe adding some vegetation. That's always something that we encourage with any application that we have that can enhance any of the areas around town. And then maybe we could take a look at that. If the foot candles are very negligible as far as the light pollution specifically to the residences across the street, then I think collectively here we could hone in on one of the two lightings.
Sure.
Seem reasonable? Okay. And then just a couple housekeeping things. On your drawings, if you could change the city of Schenectady, the town of Niskayuna.
Yep, I saw that
Yeah.
during this review, and I was hoping this would go under the radar.
Perfect.
Apologies on that front.
Okay, great. As always, we'd be looking for a project lead on this. So if anyone's interested in stepping up for that, please let myself and the planning department know. And what we can do is get a follow-up application from you showing the 2 color options. And then where the light fixture is on the last page, if you could send them a clean PDF copy of that, the ones that we get in our packet, every time we get large drawings, sometimes they're just hard to zoom in on. If you could pull that out and just send that so that we could put that in as an 8.5 by 11, it'll be easier for us to read. The print on the bottom chart is just tough to read.
Absolutely.
Yeah, the cut sheets for the OSQ series.
Yeah. Okay. All right, great. So if there's no further discussion, just be in touch with the planning department and submit that stuff to Lauren Clark, and we'll see you at a future meeting.
Sounds great. Thank
Okay.
you, everybody, for the feedback.
All right, thank you very much. Okay, next discussion item is 441 Balltown Road, a site plan application for a tenant change to Consumer Cellular. And do we have somebody from the applicant online, Laura?
Yeah, is that Roxanne?
Yeah, that's me.
Hi, how are you?
Hi, I'm well. I'm a little under the weather, so I'm not going to be on camera unless you require it, in which case
We do not.
it is what it is.
Basically, this is a tenant change that's going to have some construction associated with it. There's I guess it's currently Metro Mattress, correct, Laura? It's
Metro Mattress,
in
yeah.
Suite 2A, and they want to subdivide that up into Suite 2B, which would be creating a demising wall that would go between the two, would allow you to have some retail space there, and also would shorten down some unused space at the current mattress store.
Put in a door.
Needs a door. Yeah, it
Correct.
does. Yeah.
Okay. I didn't have much more to add to this other
Nope.
than there's an aluminum storefront that's there. It has to be modified. There will be a signage package that will be part of that as well. They would be allowed to have signage on the front. Anything above and beyond that would have to go through us to get a waiver.
The use is consistent with the zoning.
Consistent with zoning. I believe the parking, again, is also fine in that area. It's all shared parking, so there weren't any other typical flags that we had here. And outside of the elevation rendering that we saw, I didn't see anything else for additional lighting or placards, anything like that. There are 2 wall sconces that are there. It is pretty well lit up at night.
Yeah, so strongly recommend to come in with a compliant sign.
Yeah, I'm just guessing, but as proposed, this one looks like it's probably too big.
Yeah,
Right.
Yeah.
So I'm just assuming that's just an initial rendering, but this is straightforward, right? If you come in with a compliant sign, then I think we should be good.
Yeah, the sign is going to be under a sign vendor. So if for some reason you feel like it's too big when they submit, then you can work it out with them. But this is, I mean, we're just changing the tenant. The sign is going to be under a separate.
Okay.
And I've already told them that they have to come and meet with you guys. So hopefully they get that application in soon.
And the building department has some regulations on whatever that demising wall is going to need to be, right? Yep.
Yeah, I actually think the demising wall may have already been built with permit. It somehow missed planning board, so the space may already exist.
Okay.
But just to be safe, we did it as a demising space with the planning board because it definitely was not recorded with the planning board. And then Consumer Cellular would be able to move in with the new door.
Yep.
There was currently not a door there.
Right.
Right.
This, because it is demised, it's only 30 feet. The square footage of the sign would only be allowed to be 30 square feet.
Yeah.
So that is kind of small for a sign there from Balltown Road, but I definitely think we should see what it looks like as a compliant
Well, there's
sign.
also a monument sign, right?
And there is a monument sign there. Yeah, Mansion Square has a monument sign. So my suggestion would be that we do our normal tenant change resolution with a requirement that the sign returns to the planning board.
Yep.
Okay. I'm in agreement
That
with that.
sounds reasonable.
Good. Okay. Also, we're looking for a project lead on this. So anyone's interested, let us know.
I'll be the project lead on that.
Okay. Good. All right.
Would we, now, do we have to come back in January still Or is everybody okay with the tenant change, or what's the process from here?
So-
I don't know if-
We're going to call for a resolution for the next meeting. And if you have a signed package that you can get in, I believe our next meeting is January 13th.
Mhm.
So even though there's a couple holidays in between, there's ample time to get that in. If you meet with a local sign vendor, a lot of them are very, very familiar with what our codes are. So they could come up with a code compliant sign that you could review prior to the application.
If for some reason, because the sign is out of my like jurisdiction, if for some reason the sign vendor doesn't get in on time and, you know, do you guys allow temporary signs? Just, I know they're going to ask me that question.
We can move forward without the sign application. That could be a separate application if you choose to. I think for temporary signs, they are allowed something, but
We're allowed a temporary sign, but it's only 2 months long.
right.
So usually they only go in as like so a lot of times they're like a now open banner that goes underneath the sign. Like the Niskuna school has put up a temporary sign, but they got their resolution tonight, so they can actually put in a permanent sign. So the 2 months will be okay for them, but you wouldn't want to plan on a temporary sign for very long because it expires at 2 months. But yeah, so you would still need to come to the January 13th meeting for the tenant change. If you have your signed package by then, definitely submit it. If you do not, it'll be it'll have to come back to the planning board as as a different review.
Okay, if my sign package is included and you guys have issue with the sign, that won't be tied to my tenant change at all. So we could still start construction.
Correct. We can do the tenant change as a tenant change, and your sign package can be reviewed separately.
Perfect. Thanks so much.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay. All right. Thank you. All right. That closes discussion items. Moving on to reports.
The only report I have is that the town board is calling for a public hearing tomorrow night for the short-term rental code. They have made some adjustments to it. I think it is a little different than what the planning board has recommended to do them. They are allowed to do that. I'm just giving you guys a heads up that they called for a public hearing on the code that you guys proposed, reviewed it, but decided to make some changes to it. And there's going to be a resolution on tomorrow to call for a new public hearing on January 14th.
Are they requiring 14-day minimum?
They are removing the hosted versus unhosted distinction in the code.
Okay.
So they're looked at equally. There's no difference between.
Is no difference. Yes. It is posted in the town board packet if you want to take a look.
But tomorrow you're just calling for
They're just calling for the public
calling for the-
hearing.
not a public hearing.
Tomorrow, just if you're reviewing the town board resolutions and you're like, what's going on? They did do the public hearing on the one that was forwarded by the planning board. They have decided to make changes. The changes are substantial enough that they are recalling for a public hearing that'll be held on January 14th.
But the only change is just hosted versus non-hosted.
There's also, then this is just off the top of my head. They're removing the unhosted versus unhosted. They are removing the limitation on guests. They are removing the ability for the police to enforce. So it would only be building inspector. And do you remember what any of the other ones were, Clark? Am I missing one? I feel like I might be missing one.
So the key, I'm sorry, Clark, I'll wait until you're.
No, I'm struggling to remember. Was the number of bedrooms? I can't remember.
No, the number of bedrooms requirement stays the same. The application stays the same. The one strike and you're out kind of, well, one strike and then you'll get your license revoked on the next one stays the same. I think the big thing is that they're basically just removing the unhosted and hosted.
Right. So is it that the key implication of that is that we can have a situation of a short-term rental and the owner is not in the property?
Correct. Yes. That's what is done by the removing of the unhosted and the hosted. Yeah.
Which was something very critical in the
To
feedback
us.
we heard.
Yes. Yes. But
Well, I
just
mean,
so you
critical-
guys
critical to the voters.
Right. But so you guys understand, we did all of our process and proposals and did all of our due diligence on recommending it to them. I'm keeping you up to date on the changes.
No,
that
thanks,
they're making.
thanks, Laura, appreciate that.
Do you know if that change was directly a response to the feedback they got at the public hearing?
No, the feedback at the public hearing was very similar to what we got, in which everyone was requesting a ban.
A band.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So the,
So,
wow.
so the current Maynard Keynes,
Milton Keynes.
Sorry, I got my wrong economists. So currently Milton Keynes then can continue operating the way they are if this new resolution, if this
Without, I mean, yes. So Milton Keynes could have continued to operate as it was, with the exception that it had to have become a hosted Airbnb, short-term rental because it's an R1 zone. So it could have done all its registration, but it would be required that it was a hosted.
Right,
when
but if
there.
the planning board, if the town board is removing
that, it
then
would
Milton
be
Keynes
allowed
can-
to be unhosted, and so then the triggers are going to be. It still is. I understand it kept the 7-day minimum, but it would have to be more nuisance based. So, my building inspectors, if there was fireworks or a party that was happening, they would go out, document that once. If it happened again, they would pull the license. But yeah, with that removing of the hosted versus unhosted, it would be allowed to stay the way that it is, and then the enforcement would be more nuisance based.
Did you say there was no limit on the amount of guests?
They did remove the guest limitation. And so my understanding is that they were worried about some enforcement aspects of this. Like, it may be hard for us to tell during a call whether or not there's actually a person, an owner, so some of that, I think there was concerns about enforcement, I think.
On the hosted versus unhosted piece?
On the hosted versus on the hosted versus unhosted on the guests. Like, I think they were trying, my understanding, what was put on the record is that they were trying to make it cleaner.
So I have to ask for clarification. There is no limit on guests?
So I just reviewed the packet that got posted, and I do believe that is struck.
Okay.
Yes.
And then, but parking is restricted.
Parking is limited to the number of bedrooms.
Okay.
So if you had a 5-bedroom, home, the parking is going to be limited to one vehicle, I think, per bedroom, plus one for the owner.
But they could use one bus,
Yes.
correct?
So, I mean, you're still not allowed to have events. There are still a ton of things in there, right? You're not allowed to have parties. You're not allowed to have events. All of that is actually still in there. So if a bus came with a party and the building inspector got the call, that would be a violation. If they did it again, they would lose their license.
How would that be a violation?
Because you can't have parties or
Isn't it
events.
I wonder how, yeah. So the party part is the atmosphere, subjective, or number of people, non-subjective.
Yeah, I don't mean for this to be a big back and forth. I just wanted to make sure that you guys were aware. If you're checking the town board agenda, you understand they did make some changes in their recalling for a public hearing.
It wasn't posted yet when I looked today.
Oh, it's not posted yet.
It
Oh,
wasn't
it is on
earlier.
there now. Thank you, Andrew. It's on there now.
Okay. No, thanks for the update, Laura.
Yeah.
I mean, we got nothing more to say.
We will have nothing more to say.
Except that maybe it's time to buy rental property in Niskayuna.
Anything else, Laura?
That is all I had under reports.
Okay, moving on to commission business. Any members have any items for commission business?
I guess just on a related note, if you Google Wilmington, Delaware, and short-term rental ban, you'll get a flood of articles that basically they're currently going through the same thing.
They're trying to do a full out ban.
There was a segment of the community that was pushing for it, right? So you got to Google and see a bunch of articles, but it's right now the whole motion's been tabled by their city council and they're pending some more discussion early in the year. Wilmington, Delaware is highly dependent for its economic well-being and short-term rentals.
It's on the ocean.
Hmm?
It's on the ocean.
Yeah, it's a very central location to many places, including the beach, including Philadelphia, including obviously itself, Delaware. Anyway, I was gonna send that out as an email, but I forgot. It was like 2 months ago. So,
Oh, you can send it out now.
no, I mean, yeah, I gotta go dig it up. So you guys can dig it up.
I think my memory's correct. We actually had 2 public hearings on it too.
I don't remember. I'm not sure about that.
I think we
Yeah,
did
we-
the second one to make.
'Cause
it
we had an
more-
update.
Did, because
an
we did
update.
some amendments. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think maybe we did do.
All right, just a friendly reminder, if you have not done your 4 hours of training, please reach out to Laura. She can send you some good local links on different items that are out there. I also wanted to thank each and every board member here for all the work that they put in this year. It was definitely an interesting year. So we got some new faces and a lot of interesting projects. And I want to thank everybody for all their time and dedication that they put in, not only at these Monday night meetings, but all the other site trips that you do, all the other background work. It's really essential to the level that we have here at the planning board for what we do for the town. So yeah, I wanted to thank each and every one of you.
Thank you for your leadership, Chairman Derpino.
Yes.
It's, great stepping into a new role, and you're doing an awesome job. Thank you very much.
I did reach out to the planning department and the town board expressing my interest to remain as chairman. So see if that's appointed for next year.
Good sign.
Great. Want to wish everyone a healthy, happy new year and happy holidays. So I will make a motion to adjourn. Get a second.
Second.
Second by Ms. String. All in favor, state by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay.
Thank you.
Meeting is adjourned at 8:28 p.m. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, Clark. Oh, he left me.